By 1951, with the King's health declining, she was taking on more duties in preparation for her succession. Here, presenting colours to the RAF.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. Okay, so we've all heard the news of Queen Elizabeth II passing away. Now, something that I've wanted to check out, or at least know more about, is sort of the relationship between the monarchy and the actual military, like the British Armed Forces. This is something that is kind of confusing for me. I think Americans in general just have a lot of confusion in sort of how the monarchy actually fits in with certain things. Now, my opinion of the monarchy right now, I don't really have one. I can understand how the monarchy is like this sort of national symbol, or even like a symbol for the Commonwealth. But as far as like the legislative role, or even just the general political or lawmaking role, I'm not really too sure how the monarchy fits in with that. I think that there was a level of separation created between the monarchy and, you know, creating and establishing and passing laws a while ago, but I'm not entirely sure. And also how the monarchy fits in with the military. Again, I think my only exposure to that is from the movie Darkest Hour about Winston Churchill, where he's sort of interacting with the king and they're kind of talking about the king's support for, you know, certain plans or ideas or what have you. But yeah, that's pretty much my exposure. So this video from Forces News should give us a much better clarification or appreciation with how the monarchy actually fits in with the armed forces. It's about 29 minutes long, so I try not to pause it too much, but I'm sure I'm going to have a few questions here and there. But yeah, should be interesting. Let's check it out.
Buckingham Palace, a place synonymous with the close ties between the British monarchy and the armed forces. It wasn't just the immaculately turned out palace guards which tourists flocked to see, but the Queen's household was full of serving and retired forces personnel who simply made the place tick.
Okay, yeah, sounds about right.
The Queen relied on them for a multitude of tasks, from running the royal household to the flag sergeant, making sure the raising of the royal standard is timed to coincide with the exact moment the Queen passes through the palace gates. Okay,
yeah, I was about to ask that question, because in the US military, whenever like a general or, you know, somebody important enters like an area, like a headquarters building or what have you, they'll put out their flag. But yeah, I'm sure with the Queen, I guess they want to make sure it's very, very punctual, so you know the exact moment that she's actually there, which is kind of cool. I didn't actually know that. I would have been looking for it when I was over in London back in, you know, last summer. Would have been kind of cool to know that, so I can kind of look. But I mean, you can kind of tell, I guess, if the Queen's guards aren't around, then there's probably no Queen inside the building.
In private, the royal family referred to themselves as the Firm, and throughout her long reign, the Queen performed her duties as head of state with a true sense of vocation, always conducted with exemplary dedication and energy. But if the House of Windsor could be said to have a profession, it was surely that of duty in the military. The Queen herself had served in uniform, has had her father, husband, sons, and grandsons.
Now, I do think that's pretty cool for them to actually go and volunteer for the military. You might think, you know, there was some sort of symbolic obligation for someone in the royal family to do some sort of service in the military, but I'm sure they really didn't need to. So for them to actually go and volunteer, it's pretty awesome. Now, I think she met her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, when she was in the military, from what I remember hearing about. But again, it's kind of cool for them to actually go and serve. Being in the position that they're in, to go and serve in some capacity is pretty cool.
I mean, of course, the whole country looked up to the Queen for all sorts of reasons. Her dedication, her length of service, all of these things. But I do think that the armed forces and the monarch have this absolutely unique relationship, because it is to the monarch that the loyalty is owed.
Okay, that's a good point.
When they say Children's Day, they mean it. 70,000 of them, a record number, greets the two most important children, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret Rose, with a small-throated roar.
That's cool. The old school footage,
This footage shows the 11-year-old Princess Elizabeth attending a Children's Day at the Aldershot Military Tattoo in 1937. In those days, it was a massive spectacle and was a day to cherish alongside her mother and 70,000 cheering youngsters.
Where is this at? I might have said, but I wasn't paying attention.
2 years later,
insane.
with her sister, Princess Margaret, she stepped ashore to join in an official visit to Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth.
Okay.
It's where the 13-year-old was first to meet Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, aged 18 and then an officer cadet.
Okay.
Official duties on behalf of her parents, the King and Queen, swiftly followed. This was her first solo public appearance. On her 16th birthday, she reviewed contingents of 8 battalions of the Grenadier Guards at Windsor Castle.
Yes, I'm sure the royal family gets treated pretty well, but you have to think they must have been growing up. They must have had to have grown up super quickly, like mentally, because, I mean, they're growing up around the military, being in this sort of position. And then at 16 years old, she's going out and sort of reviewing these military formations, like interacting with, what, probably generals or something. Yeah, for a 16-year-old to be, you know, talking with a general about these types of topics, you probably need to get a little bit mature faster than everybody else so you can even wrap your mind around, you know, what you're actually looking at and some of the sacrifices that all of these men and women are actually doing.
She was already their regimental colonel. The Queen shared a particular bond with those like her who had put on uniform during the country's time of greatest peril. She was of that World War II generation.
Taking a
The
driving
footage
course
is
at the
awesome.
training centre is Princess Elizabeth, 2nd Subaltern ATS. She has been learning to drive and maintain all types of motor vehicles.
You know, all the drivers in the back are like, okay, make sure we look good. Make sure we keep this nice and tight, nice and aligned, because you have the freaking princess leading the convoy.
She has been learning to drive and maintain all types of motor vehicles.
Honorary 2nd Subaltern Princess Elizabeth qualified as a driver and mechanic in the Auxiliary Territorial Service and was said to return home each evening to Buckingham Palace, proudly showing off the grease beneath her fingernails after a day spent working under the bonnet of a truck.
That's
It
crazy.
meant that when the war ended later that year,
No barracks, she goes home to the Buckingham Palace. Like, that's just so weird to think
the
about.
princess could join in the nation's relief and celebration, knowing, like
in uniform.
millions of others, she had not shirked from doing her bit. 1947 saw a rare glimpse of Princess Elizabeth having fun, enjoying some horseplay on the deck of HMS Vanguard, as the battleship took her on tour to South Africa.
Okay. Interesting vacation there. Nice.
It was in Cape Town that she recorded her 21st birthday radio broadcast, in which she reflected on what her generation had just been through.
I am thinking
Jeez, if I had to do a radio broadcast when I was 21, it would sound freaking rough, especially talking about a topic like that.
especially today of all the young men and women who were born about the same time as myself and have grown up like me in terrible and glorious years of the Second World War.
Her voice is very queenly.
That year, Britain, still in the grips of post-war austerity, was cheered up by the royal wedding. It was the start of a short period of her life as a service wife and mother. For a couple of years from 1949, Princess Elizabeth enjoyed being an ordinary Navy wife when Prince Philip was posted to Malta.
I think when you see the photographs of her when she was first married to a sailor, Prince Philip, in Malta, it looked a very happy time. So I think that personal connection was if you like, cemented then. And then, of course, the unfolding relationship with the armed forces that she's held so wonderfully.
A most impressive flypast by jet aircraft.
By 1951, with the King's health declining, she was taking on more duties in preparation for her succession. Here, presenting colours to the RAF.
Yeah, now I know she's grown up in that sort of position or being, in that sort of royal family, and she I mean, I don't know when she actually was next in the line of succession when that actually happened, but for her to actually be seeing this sort of unfold, like, okay, in the near future, it looks like I'm actually going to be taking over. Like, trying to wrap your mind around that, it's pretty hard. I mean, she's still relatively young at this point, and, you know, you have all this post-World War II stuff still trying to go on, trying to repair the country, trying to motivate the country. So there's a lot of responsibilities on that particular party because, again, it's like a national symbol, especially at that point. People needed something to sort of, you know, get behind.
The presentation of the King's colour followed. It was the first to be presented to the Royal Air Force.
(1952) brought the death of her father, King George VI, who served as a Royal Navy sub-lieutenant in World War I's
How old
Battle
was
of
he?
Jutland.
Dang.
And in the summer of the following year came the coronation, and what many hailed as the dawn of a new Elizabethan age.
Damn.
The succession also gave the military an opportunity to showcase its might for their new commander-in-chief.
Holy cow.
Along the lines of ships at
No
anchor in the
kidding.
Solent, the frigate HMS Surprise was to pass in performance of her duty as royal yacht for the Queen.
Royal
Much
yacht?
reduced since wartime, but far larger than today's forces. At Spithead, in the Solent, the coronation review of the fleet took place.
That's cool.
A fleet then still a formidable force across the world's oceans. Her
Nice.
reign began as jet power was replacing propellers, so the Air Force showed how it was equipped
there you
for
go.
the Cold War at its coronation review at
Hell
RAF Odium in Hampshire.
Squadron Leader Waterton in the Gloucester Javelin rent the sky at 575 miles an hour.
What a way to
Right
get
from the
introduced
start,
into everything.
the Queen took a real interest in these events.
The Queen had a very special relationship with the armed forces based on a number of things. Firstly, she was a very warm, intelligent person, interested in everybody. Secondly, after all, her husband had fought in the Second World War. Her father had been in the Navy in the First World War. She had been in the Women's Army Corps at the end of the Second World War. Her son had fought in the Falkland Islands, and one of her grandsons had fought in Afghanistan, and the other is a helicopter pilot. So she knows a great deal about the armed forces from the inside. And there's no point in ever trying to tell her something that is nonsense, because she'll spot it right away.
For me, being in the military, whenever I see like our current civilian leaders, people who have served in the military previously, you get to kind of trust their input a little bit better just because they have that experience in the military and they sort of understand, you know, what would be at the benefits of, you know, the military. So for the Queen to be around the military, have that experience actually serving, and then, you know, pretty much growing up with that sort of military experience around her, I feel like the military members can definitely appreciate that and get more connected to it because they understand that she understands kind of what they're going through.
She was very, very much loved by the soldiers, sailors and airmen, and everybody felt it was really special when the Queen came to visit them because she took such an interest in what they were doing, and one could tell her all sorts of things that you couldn't tell a lot of other people, highly secret things that she was allowed to know, and she knew a great deal about what went on.
Nice, okay. Yeah, you know she'll take that trust and walk with it.
One way the Queen kept in touch with the armed forces was by holding audiences with senior figures. Here, the incoming and outgoing colonels of the Royal Welsh arrive at the palace to meet the Queen. Her Majesty had been Colonel-in-Chief of their regiment since it was formed in 2006.
That's pretty cool. You know their uniforms are going to be squared away. It's a pretty sick uniform, not gonna lie.
The Royal Welsh, Your Majesty.
The medals clanking together.
Philip Baker, outgoing James Swift, who's taking over as we speak.
And you're just taking over at the moment, aren't you?
That's right, yes.
Because you've done how long now?
I would have done 4.
Dude, so I know she has a very queenly voice and she enunciates her words very well. But if I was in their shoes, I'd be like so afraid to mishear her, or like, I wouldn't say I have like horrible hearing, but sometimes I just don't understand what somebody says. I mean, it happens a lot. So I'd be so afraid that she would say something. I'd be like, yeah, totally. She'd be like, I don't know. I feel like they're trying very, very hard to make sure that they're listening and hearing what she's saying.
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
It seems to have flown by.
I'm sure, yes.
Very great privilege to be the Colonel Regiment of a very fine regiment.
Very fine regiment, indeed,
you know
yes.
from very many years ago.
Yes.
And of course, protocol demands that we do not reveal the conversations, but you rest assured that the Queen took enormous interest in the state of her armed forces. And well informed, my goodness, yes. You wouldn't want to go into the room ill prepared.
Become the clerk, the worshipful company of saddlers.
Saddlers, oh right. Well, that's one that might be quite interesting, actually.
Well, I like horses. So it's
that's good.
proven to be excellent.
Indeed.
What you could be certain of is that the Queen was extremely well informed. You are not going to in any way, I think, surprise her.
Pull a fast one on her.
Certain that she did not surprise you.
Yeah, true.
The Queen combined one-to-one audiences with royal reviews of military formations on a grand scale, which became a regular feature of the Buckingham Palace diary from her early days as monarch.
27th of March, 1969. The front parade, Woolwich. The visit of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Captain General, to her Royal Regiment of Artillery.
Is that someone screaming in the background? Man, they're trying to be heard by her. Jeez. Yeah, it is crazy. This is from 1969. Like, it's so weird for me to think about all the generations of Brits that have grown up only knowing Queen Elizabeth as the leader of the monarchy. Like, I don't know, it's so trippy. I mean, she was serving as queen way before I was born, even before my mother was born, which is insane to think about, that she's gone now and that's going to be changing and England's getting a king again, or I guess the UK is getting a king again. Yeah, it's so kind of unreal to think about.
The style of coverage may have become less formal with the passing of the years, but the Queen continued to spend time among her forces as long as her health allowed. She listened to their concerns, raised them privately, and on rare occasions, voiced them publicly.
No kidding.
In 1977, during her Silver Jubilee review of the RAF, when the revolutionary Harrier jump jet headlined as the latest addition to Britain's military hardware, her speech referred to what then as now was a worry, reducing numbers and the spiralling cost of defence equipment.
Ever since the Allied victories in 1945, to which the Royal Air Force made such conspicuous contributions, the development of military aviation has been remarkable. Unfortunately, the rise in costs has been equally remarkable. At the Coronation Review at Odium, 640 aircraft took part. Today we shall see 137 in the air, but their collective capabilities far surpass those of 24 years ago.
But it was an unexpected conflict breaking out on the other side of the world that saw British forces, including her second son Prince Andrew, fighting overseas. While he took part in the South Atlantic campaign as a Royal Navy helicopter pilot, she shared the anxiety being felt by thousands of other military families.
Damn, and I don't know, I imagine at that point, Navy pilots, I mean, they had aircraft carriers and whatnot back in the day, but being a Navy pilot during like a more modern conflict, especially with more modern aircraft, yeah, I mean, I'd be kind of worried too, especially, I'm not sure at this point how much these aircraft have had the experience of going against like other aircraft or going against more like modern, you know, air defense systems, or even like things like the Exocet missiles. So yeah, I'm sure at this point it was kind of like an unknown area in sort of combat and warfare. So I'd be kind of worried too, I think.
It must have been a very scary time for her during the Falklands when Prince Andrew was down there. But you take it all those years forward when she had to watch her grandson go into a war zone. And you have to say all credit to both the lads for doing and wanting to do their duty.
For real.
In 1993, the Queen helped the RAF celebrate its 75th anniversary at a parade at RAF Marham in Norfolk. Such a keynote event took months, if not years, of planning, but whatever lay in store, they could be sure the Queen wouldn't be fazed. She had done it all before.
Man, I can't imagine the level of respect she must have had for the RAF. People her age as well, people who lived through World War II. Everybody knew the RAF during World War II. I mean, with the Battle of Britain and whatnot, the RAF became iconic. So for them to live through that and for her to serve with people like that, I'm sure she had a massive respect for the RAF specifically.
We had a new standard. We had to deal with all of that. We were actually engaged in some operations in the Middle East at the same time. In fact, the press seemed more interested in the operations in the Middle East than our 75th anniversary, as I recall from the interviews.
Most of you will have seen in recent years dramatic changes in your day-to-day lives and in the role demanded of your service. In the 75 years since its formation, the Royal Air Force has time and time again demonstrated its ability to adapt and to respond quickly and effectively to changing circumstances.
The hallmark of her official engagements, such as in 1999, when she presented new colours to the Coldstream Guards, was that however many parades she inspected, however many salutes she took, the Queen always made those taking part feel that they were special to her.
Wherever you are, your colours will remain the symbol of my trust in you. And I know that you will maintain your loyalty to me and to our country.
When you're actually there doing it, the actual parade itself.
Are they getting, and this might be a really dumb question, but whenever I see like this sort of thing going on, I'm like, are they getting knighted or something? I mean, can you, again, might be a stupid question, can you get knighted while you're in the military? I feel like that you'd automatically outrank everybody. I don't know how that would work, but yeah, I'm not sure. I see this and that's what I think of. So, of course, if I say anything that's off, definitely feel free to correct me down in the comment section. But yeah, I think when you see this generally, that's what you would think. At least a lot of Americans who don't really know anything else.
You do feel a sort of like emotion, because obviously it's part of your battalion, it's part of the history. So there's quite a lot of mixed emotion between the ranks when you're actually standing there.
What the heck?
2002, the year of her Golden Jubilee, saw the Queen in Portsmouth, where a display of simulated warfighting was laid on by the combined services to mark the first half-century of her reign. In return, she spoke of her appreciation for all that they did.
That's pretty sick. That would have been cool to take part of.
I am only too well aware of the tremendous contribution that the armed forces, including the volunteer reserves, have made to the standing and reputation of this country throughout the world during my reign. I would like to mention at this time the men and women of all three services engaged in the campaign against international terrorism, particularly those involved in operations in Afghanistan or deployed at sea in the region.
It's so trippy to think about that she served in World War II and sort of grew up through all of that, and now she is queen for this global war on terror, which is very different from what she saw when she was serving in World War II. And I mean, just the sort of geopolitical implications of everything. It's very different. You know, you have this global war on terror going against these terrorist organizations versus, you know, Nazis trying to rise to power. They're very different. So I'm sure she's getting a different level of appreciation for the military through all these different kinds of conflicts.
So today, I would like to thank all of you for your part in defending Britain and preserving peace around the world. I cannot think of a worthier task.
The day concluded with one of the strangest delivered tributes she can ever have received, when a wetsuited military diver came ashore, James Bond style, to present the sovereign with a sopping wet bouquet.
That's pretty cool.
Some flowers for your armed forces.
The dignity she demonstrated at all
What a
times
flex.
meant she rarely showed emotion. But at 2002's Golden Jubilee Parade in the gardens of Buckingham Palace, where, for the first time, the historic units who made up the sovereign's ceremonial bodyguard paraded together, she seemed to have a lump in her throat as she gazed across at those who, despite their age, would literally lay down their lives for her.
No kidding. That's freaking... Yeah, that would be very emotional.
Visiting Plymouth that year, when she boarded HMS Ocean to present new colours to the Royal Navy, she highlighted in her speech how personal experience had bound monarchy and military together.
And I would like to express my sympathy once again to the families and friends of those who have recently given their lives on active service. As a daughter, wife and mother of naval officers, I want to pay tribute to the families for the support they give to those who are serving far from home.
In 2006, the Queen saw the next generation of her family step forward for military service.
Damn.
She looked on with a grandmother's pride at Prince William's passing out parade at Sandhurst.
Okay.
Her delight perhaps tempered by her foreknowledge that his brother, Prince Harry, already commissioned in the Blues and Royals, was destined for duty in Afghanistan the following year, the first of his 2 operational tours in Helmand.
Yeah, and just as like a mother and grandmother, watching your children join the military and start serving in these different conflicts. Again, it is kind of a different warfare than what she might have been used to. I'm sure she got a good sort of appreciation and understanding of what the warfare looked like at that point, especially, you know, doing all these tours and what have you. But when it's your actual children and grandchildren going up to serve, and yeah, I'm sure it was probably pretty stressful.
As Prince William later trained to become a search and rescue pilot, the Queen called in on him in 2011 to get a personal update on his progress at RAF Valley. With such a close family involvement, the Queen keenly felt the pain of those who had lost loved ones in the military. So, in 2009, she authorised the creation of a new medal in her name.
And so I have asked that this emblem should be known as the Elizabeth Cross. This seems to me a right and proper way of showing our enduring debt to those who are killed while actively protecting what is most dear to us all.
Oh, I never even knew that.
The solemn dignity which we attach to the names of those who have fallen is deeply ingrained in our national character. As a people, we accord this ultimate sacrifice the highest honour and respect.
The Elizabeth Cross is still presented to those whose loved ones have died in operations or by terrorism. One of the first to receive the award from the Queen herself was the widow of Trooper Kristin Turton, killed in Iraq.
She knew that my husband was killed.
Yo, mad respect for her to come up with a sort of award like that. I mean, we don't necessarily have an equivalent to that as far as I'm aware. We have the Purple Heart, of course. We do have like the Gold Star banner. I'm not sure if that's not really like an official award that you get as far as I'm aware. I don't think it's like issued by the president or anything. But there is that. I'm not sure if we have any equivalent, but for her to actually come up with something like that is pretty commendable, pretty respectable, I think.
Alongside Corporal Ben Leaning in the same vehicle in Iraq. So that was really, she'd either done some research or she knew about it, but that made it really special because then to her, Chris was a person as well. He wasn't just another soldier that was lost. He was a person. She knew something about him, so that made it really special, yeah.
Very comfortable with the armed services because of her background, her own personal experiences, and her knowledge of the loyalty, the commitment that is part and parcel of the whole of the ethos of the armed services. And in that sense, we haven't changed. It's always been there. One hopes it always will be.
In 2014, the Queen performed a duty very much rooted in the present and the future. She launched the first of Britain's new supercarriers.
Of course.
Lord Mountbatten told my father, on becoming king, that there is no more fitting preparation to be king than to have been trained in the Royal Navy. My own personal associations, especially as the proud sponsor of 6 other warships and submarines, remind me that that reputation for excellence continues to this day. I name this ship Queen Elizabeth. May God bless her and all who sail in her.
Yeah, it's got to be a big honor to go and serve on that ship. I mean, we've seen plenty of video headlines, and I've seen a bunch of stuff that I haven't reacted to, where you just see the HMS Queen Elizabeth just going to work. Like, it has been doing a lot of stuff since its commissioning date, which is, it's awesome. And I guess it's kind of par for the course when you have a ship with that sort of, namesake. It needs to go and do work. It needs to be a symbol for what the military is. And I think it's cool that, she's taken so much pride in it.
HMS Queen Elizabeth, a symbol of Britain's military prowess,
that was really, I don't know, I didn't expect them to do it that way. That was like very technologically advanced way of doing that.
Name links today's forces with a monarch who has revered their service and sacrifice for many decades. 2014 will be remembered as the year the British combat mission in Afghanistan finally came to an end. In terms of longevity, it outlasted both the First and Second World Wars put together. The mood was quite different for the Queen's 90th birthday, which saw a special day of celebration across the UK. It went without saying that the armed forces were heavily involved in the festivities, not only in Windsor, where the Queen greeted the crowds, but also with gun salutes.
Whoa, that dude, I know I should be impressed by this stuff, but I'm just looking at this dude. He was all decked out and ready to meet the Queen. Holy cow. Okay, I like it.
But also with gun salutes in the 4 corners of the country.
I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Alan Spencer and his daughter Charlotte.
Her Majesty, in her later years, may not have been seen as regularly on the parade square, but she still took the welfare of veterans and their families very seriously. This was a trip to the Hague Housing Trust in Surrey to see new and affordable homes that were built for veterans.
Her Majesty has been our patron since she became Queen. In fact, came to some of our homes to open them as Princess Elizabeth in Jersey 70 years ago. So to have her back, to show her what we've been doing, to be able to explain, and for her to meet people who made it happen, but also meet people who are going to live in the homes, was just so special.
As Her Majesty reached the twilight of her reign, not even she could have predicted how Britain would be confronted by an unseen enemy.
Man, that's another thing. Like, you're growing up and serving through like World War II, and you just have so much knowledge of all this stuff and, all these threats to your country. And then something like COVID happens. Like, it's just not something that anybody expected. But for her to live through that as well, it's like, damn, like, you can't predict what you're going to see next.
That threatened our lives, livelihoods and economy. Thousands of forces personnel answered their country's calling to support the nation's campaign against the COVID-19 virus. Millions of viewers tuned in to hear the Queen's message of reassurance.
While we have faced challenges before, this one is different. This time we join with all nations across the globe in a common endeavour, using the great advances of science, and our instinctive compassion to heal. We will succeed, and that success will belong to every one of us. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again.
The corona.
Man, I gotta say, even for like her age, when she's giving that speech, like she's very well spoken, and of course she's had a lot of experience with doing speeches and things like that. But you do believe it. I mean, at least for me, I feel like I'm believing it, and yeah, I mean, it's nice when you sort of get something like that again to help sort of draw the country in together.
The coronavirus pandemic produced incredible stories of human endeavour and amazing acts of kindness. The NHS fundraising efforts of Captain Tom Moore, a 100-year-old veteran, made him a national hero and just about the only member of the public to come face to face with the Queen during the pandemic.
And
that was to receive his knighthood.
No kidding. Whoa.
At Remembrance Time in 2020.
What the heck? How tall is that dude? My gosh.
The Queen wore a face mask in public for the first time as she made a poignant pilgrimage to the grave of the unknown warrior at Westminster Abbey to mark the centenary of his burial.
Your Majesty, on Armistice Day, we will mark 100 years since the burial of the unknown warrior.
After the Queen touched her bouquet, her equerry laid it on a corner of the grave.
Now, I think this in and of itself deserves its own video. So if y'all have any videos or documentaries that might explain this tomb or the history of this tomb, definitely recommend them because I'd like to learn a little bit more about this. But again, for her at this age to still be doing this and paying her respects, like you have generations of Brits who are seeing this, seeing her sacrifice, even at this age, for showing respects and whatnot. So I think it's kind of cool to have all these generations of Brits growing up and seeing that.
In 2021, the Queen and the nation lost the person whom she described as her strength and stay. The Duke of Edinburgh had been admitted to hospital on the 16th of February, and his treatment took a whole month, which included a heart procedure at St Bartholomew's Hospital. He returned to Windsor Castle, but died on the 9th of April, 2 months before his 100th birthday. The armed forces played a key role in his funeral at St George's Chapel, which was restricted by the pandemic. Many newspapers highlighted the monarch's dignity and stoicism as she mourned.
Now this is something that I missed entirely. I do remember obviously hearing about this, but I didn't get to see many of the videos, so it's kind of nice to see some of the videos and sort of see how it all went down. But again, you can definitely see the sort of role or connection between the military and the monarchy, especially for processions like this.
Stoicism as she mourned her husband at a distance from the rest of the family. But despite her loss, the Queen continued with her work as sovereign. Just a few weeks later, she flew onto Royal Navy flagship HMS Queen Elizabeth to wish the ship's company well as they prepared to embark for the Far East on Britain's first carrier strike deployment in 11 years. She took the chance to meet some of the 1,700 personnel on board the carrier, which included a detachment of 250 from the United States.
That is pretty freaking cool. Like, those guys and girls are very, very lucky. Yeah, their uniforms are absolutely going to be squared away. And I'm not going to lie, they do look pretty freaking squared away. So
included a detachment of 250 from the United States. It was another of those moments when Her Majesty gave a glimpse of her continued commitment to her armed forces, a commitment that began on her 16th birthday and endured for decades.
So many different types of these celebrations
and
too.
The nation's love for Her Majesty the Queen was never louder or clearer as she celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, an astonishing record-breaking reign. This appearance on that palace balcony was a welcoming reassurance for a nation so long under her reign. Her increasingly fragile health and mobility issues had already seen the Prince of Wales replace her at Troop in the Colour, and she was forced to turn to the television to watch a star-studded Jubilee concert in her honour, and even the Epsom Derby. It was clear she was deeply touched by the affection of the nation she had served for so long. For generations of Elizabethans, the world will never be the same.
Whoa, that is like super crazy to think about. We just saw, like they did the flyover where it had 25 and now it's 70. Man, that is super trippy. Like, it's hard to summarize it. I mean, you're just watching a video like this, but yeah, that's a lot of history in between.
Never be the same. And for the armed forces who honoured her long reign, there will never be a commander-in-chief quite like her.
Definitely a respectful video. I think it was very, very well done. Some great clips too. Dang, okay. Yes, I know this video was a little bit longer, but it definitely felt very different from other videos that I've checked out. I think, again, to summarize that sort of service in one video is pretty hard to do. Again, I think they did a very solid job at it though. And it's just a weird time in history to think that the Queen is gone and that there's going to be a king now. Because again, you think there's generations of people around the world who have only known Queen Elizabeth, you know, as the head of the monarchy. So it's definitely weird times. Now, I want to know, especially from, you know, Brits or anybody that has met the Queen, what your experiences were. Because, I mean, I've heard some pretty funny stories about her as far as like her sort of comical side and everything. And you usually hear stuff like that from the troops. But yeah, if you guys have any personal stories, definitely let us know. Or just from your perspective, especially from the Brits, your perspective about how it feels. Because again, sort of from the outside looking in, I mean, when you think of England or the UK, you think of the Queen, and now that's going to be different. And, you know, for Brits, obviously, there's going to be much more of a more personal relationship with the monarchy, especially since it is this sort of national symbol. So I want to know what you guys think and sort of pick your brains as far as how it actually feels from the Brit perspective, or the, you know, the Commonwealth perspective. But yeah, I think this video did a very solid job, very respectful, and definitely did a good job at sort of summarizing everything, especially even for me, where I don't know a whole lot about the monarchy, to be able to understand and appreciate her sort of role in the military. But yeah, hopefully you guys were able to learn something. Hopefully you guys were able to appreciate the video. But that is it for this one. I'll see you all in the next one.